Hello, everyone. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy day to join us. Today, we have two special separate interviews with a business and HR executive from Verizon. We are going to discuss how to support women in business in general, and specifically a few initiatives that Verizon has launched to assist in the effort. The first interview is with Aimee Novak. She's the Vice President of Business Sales at Verizon. She has been inspiring women and business owners nationwide when it comes to teaching them how to help grow their business and building their own personal advisory board. In this interview, I wanted to better understand two of their efforts. The first is Women in Business. It's a program that they launched bringing together leading female business leaders in the space in a series of intimate video roundtables. And the second is a recent effort known as the Women's Collab. This effort will bring together resources to succeed both during the pandemic and beyond. And in an increasingly digital world, participants get access to trailblazing leaders, best in class development resources, and an array of tools to remain in the workplace and thrive. Aimee, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we get started, why don't you first just tell me a little bit about why this is important to you, and then we'll start talking about the programs.
Sure. So I've been with Verizon for 15 years. I actually started as an individual contributor in a technical sales role on the data team, and that was back in 2006. I held various roles after this, which helped prepare me for my first director role, which was also the first time that I needed to relocate. So in 2014, we moved as a family, 3 young kids, and my husband from Ohio to Michigan. And my husband made real intentional sacrifices in his career to help support me in this role. So it was definitely a family affair. And then 3 years after our Michigan move, we moved the family again, this time to Texas, where I led the South business team. From there, Jim, I was promoted to vice president over the South in 2019, which leads me to where I am now. And I actually start my new role as vice president over the small business team today. So not lost on me that I would not be in the position that I'm in without hard work, first and foremost, but also without the support of my family and without the mentorship and the development that I've received from the Verizon leadership team over the last 15 years.
That's a great story, and it's inspiring to hear that your husband was supportive, and was able to take that role backwards. I know it's something that isn't always the case. It's almost assumed that it won't be that way, which is part of the problem. I mean, big time. So, yeah, thank you. I just I want to dive right into the Women in Business Mentorship Program. Can you just tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so let's start with the Women's Collab that we announced. So on March 5th, we launched Verizon Women's Collab. And the intent was to address the crisis of women leaving the workforce at pretty alarming rates due to the pandemic. This number that I'm going to throw out, to me, it's just shocking. Since February of last year, 2.4 million women have left the workforce. That's shocking, and none of us should feel like that's okay. So Women's Collab, it's a career engine that will bring together best in class resources and support systems to really empower women to own their career and realize their greatest ambitions. So Collab will provide women with free access, and I think that's key, free access to programming, trade secrets from industry leaders, mentorship, strategies to challenge the status quo and break down barriers. And our vision is to develop a network that's powered by women for women that will ultimately, shape a more equitable future. So we're working right now, and I think Claudia has shared this with you, to curate the materials. So the materials that we're curating, they'll offer career trajectory support. So when I think about that, I think about how to put together your resume. How do you network? How do you care for your personal brand? Because once your brand is out there, that's your brand. How can you be bold? How can you better negotiate? So all of this, as well as content featuring industry leaders that are sharing their experience, their expertise, and their advice, that's the goal. And really, when you think about who is our goal audience, it's pretty simple. It's women that are looking to advance in their careers and either enter or re-enter the workforce. And when I think about re-entering the workforce, what comes to mind is I wish we didn't have to have that conversation, because the goal should be to keep women from leaving in the first place. So those are what we're working towards, just making sure that all of those tools are accessible. You don't need to work at Verizon in order to access these. They're for all women, and it's free.
Yeah, that's part of the reason I really wanted to share this with our audience. And our audience is made up of HR professionals. I think it's something like 70% of HR professionals are women. And then, of course, they have a huge amount of influence over the lives of the people that work at the organization. It's in a way that really leadership doesn't, and individual managers don't. HR is often the people that are sculpting the overall approach of an organization. So it was very important to me, and specifically because of that stat you mentioned. And I have another stat that's related. Uh, 5 out of 6 people that have left because of the pandemic were women. So it's way too many women that have left, but it's also the majority of the people that left were women. And I've talked to a lot of professionals about how do we approach this issue, how do you encourage people to stay, and traditional methods like you know um, just being open, trying to have an ERG, employee resource group, or something like that doesn't really work, because the reason so many people left is because they went to go take care of kids and parents, and it just isn't time. So when I look at a program like this, I see a lot of potential for getting people that left the workforce the tools to get back, and people that are trying to enter the workforce for the first time. Um, how long have you been working on this?
So as I've been working to support women in business for many many years, but so Verizon, we have a very rich history in putting together programs that do just that, into supporting women. Obviously, what we've seen over the last year has really created an opportunity for us to escalate some of these programs. But I'll tell you, last year we initially launched the Women in Business Initiative, and again, it was to provide support for women-owned businesses, for the SMBs, the entrepreneurs. It was all in hopes of celebrating women achievements, and then to take these valuable lessons that we've learned from female business owners and share them. You talk about surveys and stats. We recently conducted a survey, and we found that 59% of women who plan to re-enter the workforce, they cannot afford the training to remain competitive. And there's another stat that we found with this: 72% of women, they're concerned about difficulties finding a job that matches their skill set. So, all of this that has been around for years, with the crisis of women leaving the workforce due to the pandemic, Verizon wanted to get involved in a very meaningful way to make a difference. And that's when we decided to launch several programs, including the Women Own Wednesday, which is fabulous, and the collab programs that we were talking about, to provide these additional tools and resources to support these women and give them a hand up. And when you think about it, what's out there today, it's all over the place. So you can't go to one site and get all of the information that you need. And by the way, a lot of it isn't free. So you think about women that have had to take a step back from their careers. They're already financially strapped, many of them. And now we're asking them, hey, pay for this, pay for this, pay for this, in order to get the skill set that you need to apply for this position. It can truly be a daunting task. Before the pandemic, I was working with family members, with friends who found that they had to take a step back to care for elderly parents, to care for small children. And then you throw the pandemic in it, where we have many women that became teachers overnight. So now they're at home trying to figure out, how can I work? How do I support my family? Most of the burden we found with household responsibilities fall to the women. So there's just so many things that we can do to help clear the clutter, make it a less daunting task when they're ready to get back to work, and provide them with these tools that are essential. They're really critical.
It's a little upsetting to hear that these kinds of things often cost money, because that means a bunch of people out there made the same assessment you made, but instead of seeing people that need help, saw a market. And you know, I understand that that's an impetus in business, but it's like, if you really want to solve the problem, you have to forget about the money part. You have to think about, what do these people really need, and how do you get it to them as capably as possible. You did mention, and I brought it up in the beginning, the sort of commiserate program you guys have, Women in Business. Can you talk about that one too a little bit?
Sure. So Absolutely. So there's a few things that go into the collab, but we have the Women Own Wednesdays, we have the Women in Business. One of the programs that I would like to quickly talk about is a program that we've had around that's internal to Verizon, but I want to throw this out there because it's one that I'm an executive sponsor of, and I'm so excited about it. And that this goes to what I said earlier about Verizon has had a very rich history of supporting women. But an internal program that we have is called WOW, and it stands for Women of the World. It's held different meanings over the years. We've certainly evolved it, but this is something that we can take the concept and share it outside of Verizon. So it's a professional development program, and this year we have a targeted development experience plan for our participants that center around 5 key pillars. So again, whether this is an internal program or not, these are 5 pillars that I think every woman should think about, whether they're trying to advance their career with their current employer or reignite their career jumping back into the workforce. And the focus is around personal brand, self leadership, effective communication, critical thinking, and owning one's career. And when I mentor team members, and this goes whether you're a male or female, all of the mentoring sessions that I hold, I talk about, hey, you can get access to these great resources. But at the end of the day, it's what are you doing with it? You need to own your career. So no one's going to do that for you. We can throw the resources at you. We can tell you what books to read. We can position you with great leaders to learn from them. But you need to own your career and you need to be intentional. So when you talk about women in business, which is part of CoLab that you asked about, and is this a separate initiative? Let me just describe this. So Women's CoLab builds upon several of the company's initiatives that champion women's advancement, period, including the Verizon Women in Business. So Women in Business launched last June. It launched in 2020. And it was really, once again, to support women-owned businesses. And since this time, since we launched this, we've provided really valuable resources for women and for minority-owned small business owners and entrepreneurs. And to date, our Women in Business events, we've had over 200,000 views. So you can see this is super important. It's an initiative that's really resonating with women across the country. So in partnership with the National Association of Women Business Owners and Circle Around, the programs included one-to-one mentorships, industry-specific panels and content that really celebrates the achievements and the lessons that we've learned from women small business owners. So again, if you think about it, being positioned with someone that has had a great career, making that linkage and providing mentorship opportunities, it's really unique. I think it's pretty special. And then those industry specific panels where you get to listen to people who have made tough choices in their life, but have been able to climb into various leadership positions. All of this together is just one heck of a tool that we're putting together for women.
Yeah, one of the things that I found the most interesting about it, and perhaps the most valuable, at least from my perspective, is the mentorship aspects. It's, and I know this very well, just in general, it's hard to get started in things, especially if there's a chance for failure or even worse, perceived chance for failure. Because sometimes that it was never going to happen that way, but you stop yourself. Having that other person, whoever they are, to just help you understand that this is a thing that can work. There's steps to achieving success. Can really, really help. Um, that's just something that I wouldn't know how to go find a mentor, just out of the blue. It's just something that I find to be really commendable. I don't know if you would be comfortable talking a little bit more about the mentorship aspects of these programs.
Yeah, sure. So let me just talk about mentorship in general. It's work. It's work. And early on in my career, I would say, this person's my mentor because I know them. Right. So you throw out these names and you assume, as I was very green in during my early leadership stint. And I just thought, well, I talk to this person and this person on a regular basis. Therefore, I can consider them my mentor. And it was the same type of informal mentorship that I provided to some of my team members. But once you really understand how important mentorship is and where do you go to find the proper mentor, you realize that to get anything out of that relationship, it requires work from the mentor and the mentee. And it requires, homework in advance. What's the agreed upon agenda? I do not go into any of these conversations lightly anymore. I look for an agenda to come from the person that I'm mentoring. I do the same when I to speak with my mentors. It's just something that has to be very structured. And I would say that from a mentorship standpoint, you know, it depends on what opportunities you have in your career. Like you have to know what your strengths and your opportunities are in order to pair yourself with someone that's going to really make a difference. So, we are still working on some of the aspects of this program and what mentorship will truly look like. But I have a lot more experience now. If you asked me back in 2006, even 2010, I would have probably said something very different to you. But I've just really over the years have practiced good sessions. Is my person walking away with actionable items? And by the way, most of the mentorships, these sessions that I have, I walk away learning as much as the person that I'm mentoring. So, more to come on what this formal program will look like, but it is super important that you have someone that will give you truths. It can't all be everything's great. You have to have opportunities, regardless of what level of leadership that you've reached, where you can prove upon. And I think that goes back to staying curious about the business, whatever business you're in, always being ready to learn and making sure that you're staying on the cutting edge for your industry.
Well said. Um, you mentioned something about was it Women in Wednesday? I don't have the name of it. What was that program?
Yeah, let me give you a little bit more about this. I think, as you can tell, I'm super passionate about all the programs, but it's called Women Own Wednesday. So, as part of the Verizon Women's Collab, we're creating a movement and we're working with our partners to support women doing really extraordinary things and women owned businesses every week. So, we're calling upon society, coworkers, customers, everyone to bring awareness to this topic. And really, it's about supporting women. So every week on Wednesdays, all of our Verizon social channels, they feature women doing really extraordinary things with a particular focus on women-owned businesses throughout the country who are making meaningful contributions within their communities. So this awareness, I'm super passionate about it, but it just highlights women, highlights women-owned businesses, and the team's super excited about it. So we're going to continue this every week on Wednesdays as we really put some muscle behind this movement.
I like that. I especially like that it's an ongoing thing because we'll have Women's Awareness Day or Women's Awareness Month, and that's important. It is. It's just that then it's over and we move on and we talk about other things. I can see the value in that reoccurring aspect of having it every week. Really reinforcing the importance of it. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just tell you, I want to elaborate on why it's so important that programs like this exist. I know we've talked a bit about it, but as women, it is so important that we continue to celebrate, that we support, that we learn from one another. And we just reached the 1 year anniversary since the nationwide shutdown. It's shocking that it's been a year. And many women, they're struggling when it comes to finding the proper resources and tools that they need to advance their careers. So these programs that Verizon has put together provides access to free resources. I can't say that enough. These resources will benefit women as they prepare to reignite their careers. So, as a company, our vision is to develop a network that's just accessible for all. We're going to continue to expand upon this. I'm excited for the content that we'll put together. And by the way, the content won't be static. We're going to continue to update this. And to your point that you just made, it's not about something we do for a week or something we do for a month. This has to be an ongoing effort to really get women back to where they need to be, and that's in the workforce.
I think that's about it for now. So thank you so much, Amy, for joining me.